Hey everyone, welcome to the conclusion of this FXS Lowrider restoration series. If you're first joining us, you could click on this link in the top right corner. It'll take you to a listing of all the videos. You could click on the first link or whatever link you left off from and continue from there. In the last video, we packed up the motorcycle and brought it over to the proving grounds to seat the rings. After 25 miles, it was put back on the lift and got a comprehensive inspection. Parts were removed from the bike so that the head and the base bolts could be correctly checked to ensure that they hadn't loosened in the 25 miles. It was realized that the seal for the oil pan nut was incorrect and a new one would have to be fabricated out of nylon, and that's where we leave off now. Let's get started. Nowadays, we got nylon and we're gonna have to shape it to fit, but I think this will work. You think it'll work?
Yeah, it'll work.
I opened up the nylon to just the size that I needed, and this is going to be screwed back in. I think this will do the job. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this into place and we're going to tighten it down. Not as tight as copper, but we could go pretty tight with nylon. I'm going to tighten it tighter than this later, but just give it a little torque. We're going to clean up any possible oil around it. Naturally, I have another filter to put in, so we're going to drop this filter in. We're going to close that cap down on top of it. I'm just adding enough oil as to go down to that back bottom corner to see if we have any leaks. Maybe about a sixth of this quart. Move on to other tasks, we'll come back to this later. Standing here now draining out my gas tanks because I have to figure out what's wrong with the fuel valve. We're going to open up this valve. I got a good feeling that the rubber gasket in the back is damaged somehow. And I could already see rubber particles from the gasket. It is in fact damaged. This is quite unfortunate because this is brand new from JP Cycles and it's broken. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull it out and we're going to flip it around and hope that the other side is good. I've dried it off. Yeah, you can see that this side is trashed. The other side is good though, so I'm simply going to flip it around and reinstall it back into the unit. Now I'll just reassemble the unit. Do a quick test of mechanics. Everything seems good. Gasoline was added and tested in the off position, and it was found that it no longer leaks, so this problem is resolved. It was also found during this time that this area no longer leaks. This problem was also resolved. With that, the remainder of the oil was added back into the bike. Fuel valve issue is resolved. Oil pan bolt leak is resolved too. Lowering the bike down to address the master cylinder leak issue, taking a closer look here, and we see it is leaking pretty bad and from everywhere. There's no doubt. I'd initially thought that it was leaking from overhead, but we could see that it's leaking from the back, the front, the side, and around. And as I take a look, it's actually not leaking from the top, from the reservoir. I don't see anything weeping out of here as I had initially thought. So I'm going to have to order up a master cylinder rebuild kit. In the meantime, we'll start removing this by starting off with the removal of the fluid. Take off this cover, and I see that this gasket had removed in two pieces, so this is actually no good anymore. And it was a new gasket too. There's some debris on here, but I'm gonna get a paper towel in there. A lot of it had already been leaking out through everywhere else, so it's half empty. I'll tie a towel around here so we don't get anything leaking out over the rest of the motorcycle. I'm gonna use a 7/16, two of them actually, one to hold it, the other one to turn as I remove this hose. And I'm going to unscrew it. And in case anything leaks, I got that towel under there. And as I take it off, there's nothing pouring out, but better safe than sorry. So now I put a wrapped paper towel around that hose, and then around that paper towel, some masking tape. And I'm going to tape this hose off the handlebar now. That'll keep it clean and then stop anything from leaking out should the hose fall over. What's in the reservoir has been absorbed. There wasn't much. I'll give it a once over to remove whatever's left. I'll then incrementally loosen these 5/32 hex bolts, being sure that as I remove them, I'm holding onto the brake lever before I remove the last one, lest it should just fall off and onto the floor. Then I'll pull the brake light switch cables. The brake reservoir and handle comes off as a single unit as shown. I'm going to have to pour out the remaining fluid though. I'm going to do so into a towel. As I push the handle back and forth a little bit, we could clearly see the fluid was coming up past the seal. Everything on the motorcycle will sit like this until we come back. We'll take these parts down to the bug ranch with the rebuild kit and pay Jason a visit. Back at the bug ranch, this vise is 4 feet off the ground. It's really good for camera work. Secure the unit into the vise using a towel to protect it, as so. And then a pick just to rotate a circlip into the workable position. Just like that. Now with a flat surface, I could get into the circlip, and using my hand to make sure it doesn't fly out somewhere, I'm just going to pry it out so I could detach it. And now it's pried out. I'll just simply remove it. At this point, I get started with the magnetic tray so I don't lose everything. I'll now release the unit from the vise. And using a dowel or equivalent, I will push this pin through, making sure to hold everything together because it will fall apart once the pin is removed. And I give it a good start so I can get it from the other side, holding the handle with my fingers. You can see I got a good hold on it and get the pin out of there. And we can see where the little nub is on the handle for the brake light. Pulls out just like that, and a round cylinder will fall out from the middle, and it landed in my hand. And that will also go into the tray, filled with oil, along with the handle covered in oil. And we'll place this back down on the vise. This plunger and spring should pull right out of the unit. So I'm going to take that out and put it right into our magnetic pan. Right under that is a metal washer. So that metal washer will also go into the pan, revealing the felt that's just below it. So I'm going to use a hook to pull the felt and actually grab the washer under it initially, but then it fell back in. So as I laid it onto the side, that metal washer under the felt fell out. So I picked that up and I'll drop it in the pan. Mind you, I'm saving all these parts. I'm not getting rid of anything yet. Underneath, we see a circlip and a piston that we'll have to get at next. I've secured the unit in a vise in this direction. Anytime I work with this clip, I'm going to have to push the piston down. I got a long screwdriver to do that. And right now I'm just using a pick to get it into a working position. With the screwdriver holding the piston down, I'm going to use 90-degree circlip removers to squeeze the clip and lift it up out of the slot. And that also raises the piston, which I can now remove. Do a quick inspection on the seal. I don't expect to see any visual horror stories. There's some wear that I do see on the face of the seal though. Under the piston, you can see reveals the cap and spring. I covered the holes in the reservoir and blew into the port to blow out the cap, which releases the spring. And there's the cap and a piece of metal under the cap that secures the spring in the middle, followed by the spring itself, which falls right out. And now this unit is entirely empty and ready for cleaning. First I removed the debris, and then I realized that I could just wash this thing in the sink with Palmolive, so I did that. And then everything was cleaned out with carb cleaner once it was dried. What I did then was the cylinder area was filled with oil, so I could get a bore brush in there and clean everything with a brass bore brush. Safely remove any deposits that accumulated on the cylinder walls. This of course required a re-cleaning of the whole unit, so everything was re-cleaned. Visual inspection of the cylinder wall shows everything to be copacetic, so we'll be able to start our rebuild. So now we'll take out our rebuild kit and set all the parts to the side. I'm using the new rubber cup, but the older centering piece was of better quality, so I'm using the older one. It was cleaned. I'm adding some oil into the cap, and I'm pouring some down the cylinder, using my finger to disperse it. We're going to be using a lot of oil in the build, of course, getting it everywhere within the cylinder as we can. Also coating the new spring with oil, dropping it in. Larger side of the spring points down, taper is up. Rubber cap and metal centering piece are also coated with oil, so I poured out from the cap onto them. Just cover them with oil. After this, I take the metal centering piece and put it into the cap with the metal nub facing up as shown. Easier to flip the unit over and put the cap onto the spring like this so it doesn't fall out, and then push upwards. Once you cross the threshold, it kind of stays in there, and then you push again to fully seat it, and it stays up there about 1/4 of an inch, and you could press it to make sure that it pushes in on the spring tension nicely and comes back to that stop point. Here's the new piston and seal. I'll be cleaning both of them first before anything. I want to take a quick measurement and make sure it fits in here. It looks good, so I'm going to clean them now. Like everything else, both the piston and the seal will be oiled completely. Seal is then carefully placed on, followed by more oil everywhere. The piston is then lowered down into position. A new circlip came with the kit. We're going to use it. Clip is on the tool. The screwdriver goes through the circlip. The screwdriver pushes down the piston, and while the piston is down, the circlip goes into the recess to lock into position. And mine was not fully locked in perfectly, even though the pick is trying to do so. I couldn't see perfectly from the camera. I did come around and correct this moments later, as we will see. Now it's corrected, and we can see the piston falls down and comes back up in the right position. On top of the circlip is the first of two washers. We're going to use the old ones because they're of better quality. The felt that came with the replacement was enormous. I put it in just to show how big it is compared to the felt that I had. So I took it out and opted to go with my existing felt. So I just put that right back in. The second of two washers goes over the felt, so I place that in now. This is followed by the plunger and spring, so I just place that right through the hole. No problem. Give it a couple pushes, make sure there's no binding. This is how the handle fits back in. This circular piece would be placed in first facing this direction, lowered into position to line up to the plunger as shown. It would pivot to do so, and then lock in as shown. With everything held together, the locking pin goes back through all of these pieces out through to the other side. Give the brake handle a little jiggle to make sure nothing's binding. Seems good. Protruding from the bottom is the piece that allows the clip to go back on, so I set up the clip, and with a small pair of pliers, I compress it to lock it back into position. Snaps into position. And this piece is finished. With that done, what we're going to do is we're just going to put a little bit of fluid in here, just do a really quick bench bleed, make sure it's functioning okay. Nothing comprehensive, I'm just looking for gotchas. So I'm putting a little bit of oil in, getting some of the air out, putting my finger on the front, add a little more oil, and it seems to be working. I'm looking for leaks on the other side. I don't see any. Very good. I'm going to reinstall the unit. The first thing I'm going to do is reconnect the brake light, make enough slack for the wire to get in there. It's very fiddly. It's not a good design in my opinion. But as I connect these two little wires inside to the switch, I want to close everything up with just one bolt, just to make sure everything works properly. Give it a couple turns so it doesn't fall apart on me. Toggle the switch. But as it turns out, brake fluid got into my switch and it was no longer working reliably. I removed it and tried to clean it up with deoxit inside, and I bent these tabs so the tabs wouldn't push it either. And yeah, this thing was just really worn out. I then tried testing just the switch itself, but when I did, I really didn't get a good feel and it wasn't working as I wanted it to, so safety first, I opted to get a new switch. The new switch arrived and I immediately tested it in circuit and it works reliably, so I'm confident that I could put it in. Here it is compared to the old one. It really is fiddly installing these, getting the thread started, and then you got that little piece you got to turn to seat it fully. So it takes a while to get this in there, quite annoying. Then I just made sure it was fully seated very gently with a pair of pliers and then check that it's actuating good. Now I'll hook everything up again, getting these two wires on without breaking nothing. Push up that rubber shielding, bring everything together and get that one screw to hold everything together so we could do a quick test. Get a couple threads turned on there so it doesn't all fall apart. And I'm a lot more comfortable with this switch and the indication people will get behind me when I hit the brakes. With that in mind, it's time to put in the remaining screws. Now, as I do this and tighten this down, obviously I'm going to have to loosen this again when I'm actually sitting on the bike, because it's not going to be in the ideal position till I could really see the exact pitch of this. So we're going to put them in, and then I'm going to have to keep in mind that obviously we're going to revisit this later. Pull off this hose now and the tape and the paper towel and everything that was used to stop this from falling on the floor and getting contaminated as we reconnect it back to the master cylinder. Then we'll use our 2 wrenches to snug this back down. Tie a towel under the bars right here. We're going to fill up some fluid to bleed the top of this system, and what we're going to do is we're just going to pull the brakes only about 20% of the lever, very gently. This is just to purge the air from the master cylinder. And we're going to do this probably about 50 times. As the air comes out, the level's going to drop, and then eventually the brakes are going to stiffen up, and we're going to be good to go. I have no idea how this piece got 20% larger, but I got a new one on the way anyway, so I'm just going to cut this to size. Now I'm closing up the brake system. And these front brakes, they feel solid. Definitely confident about these front brakes. This concludes the final chapter and the end of this project. This has been a tremendous project getting this bike back on the road, but it is now completed. It's been a wonderful challenge, and I've had a great time. Do me a favor, hit that like button down below. Helps me a lot when you do. And hit that subscribe button for more videos like this when they come out, and a video, follow-on video, maybe posted in the top right. But this series is over. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in and being a part of this series over the last couple of years. It's been a long road to restore this bike, all the problems it had. So we're going to end it here. See you on the road. Thanks for watching. And thanks for watching. I would like to thank you for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. And thanks for watching. 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 And thanks for watching. 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 Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching. Would you like to reply?